Excellent. Welcome. Welcome everybody to the next panel session. Is this working? Is this live? This is good. Excellent. So I'm Jim Morrish. I'm half of the founding partners of a company called Transforma Insights, and I'm joined here for a panel with a group of people who are not the people listed over there. Well, I think there's one match, but perhaps you should introduce yourselves. Olivier, after you.
Yes, thank you, Jim. So I'm Olivier Pauzet. I'm the VP of Marketing for Sequans, a semiconductor company based in Europe, developing chipset for LTM, Cat1bis, and the next generation of 5G eRedCap.
I'm Daan Pape. I'm the co-founder of DPTechnics. We're an IoT integrator, and we're also the designer of IoT building blocks, both hardware and software.
Yes, and as Jim pointed out, I'm neither Toby nor Afzal, although some days I wish I was. I'm Nicolas, Lesconnec. I'm in charge of partnerships at Soracom. We are a Japanese company, like an IoT enabler, and offering connectivity solutions, and working together with Sequans and DPTechnics for our customers.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm hosting and moderating this panel. We will circle around at some point partway through and ask for questions from you guys out in the audience to pose to our panel of experts, an opportunity to learn something and maybe others to listen in and learn too. But the focus of this panel is scaling IoT in practice from proofs of concept to deployment. Now, we heard about some extremely large rollouts on the last panel, the little Starsky and Hutch lights in Spain, which were going to reach tens of millions. But many IoT projects are far smaller in scope. They never have an ambition to roll out a huge number of end devices, but all add to that very fragmented nature of IoT. But every practice or every project will have to consider at the beginning how big are they going to be, how are they going to scale from where they are on a desk through to real-world deployment and what that real-world deployment looks like. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So I just want to touch on one aspect of that scaling. Now, I mentioned that project team at the beginning who is conceiving an idea and wants to take that to market. Do you feel that those teams always have all of the knowledge that they need, or is there a split between maybe domain experts and IoT experts? How does that work? Do you want to take that one first?
So when looking at an IoT project, you always need to start from a business case. And when we're looking at our customers, they have real knowledge about that business case, about what they are doing. But when we are looking at the field of IoT, we are seeing a lot of technical knowledge about protocols, about communication protocols, about low battery life. So there's definitely a gap between technology and that business case. So that's definitely a problem that needs to be tackled when looking at an IoT scaling up solution, that how you need to translate this business case into a technical solution.
Okay, Olivier, do you have any thoughts? Have you seen the same kind of issues? Do you have any further thoughts?
Yeah, no, yes, very similar issue. The other thing I would like to add is it's not rocket science to make a prototype, to make one device that communicates. Every smart engineer can do that very quickly. And now, if you want to scale, that's where the issue is. And people sometimes don't see these difficulties. They believe that they have something working on the table that works. They go to see their board of directors, say, yes, let's do this, and they're ready to go. And this is where all the issues start, because you need to think about a lot of things, but coverage, security, reliability, the right protocol to use, upgrade over the air, and so on. There is a very, very long list to manage if you want to be able to scale. And the issue of IoT is actually the scalability, not the prototype.
Nicolas, do you see the same kind of issue in terms of a split between domain competence and IoT competence or technical competence? And have you observed that? How has that manifested itself in projects that you've seen? Who's done it well or who's done it badly?
Well, I wouldn't say who's doing it badly. That wouldn't be a good look. No, I would not. I'm doing it badly sometimes. I used to. No, clearly you have that split because IoT goes across a very wide spectrum. Even from a technical point of view, it's very hard to know everything about the module choice, the technology choice, device, hardware, mechanical. Then you've got the whole cloud side, data management, data security, all the data in motion, data in rest that you have to manage. And then you've got the business aspect where you need to understand if you are doing smart lockers, water metering, remote patient care. It's a whole lot of different regulation, go-to-markets, decision makers. So it's very hard to have everything. So you need to have the right partners around you to help you out and focus on your own expertise so you can then deliver the proper value, avoid the mistakes. As Olivier said, when you scale up is usually when all the fun issues start to pop up. And if you didn't consider them early on, that's how your brilliant idea that was working so well for 10 prototypes is going to fall apart because you are not ready for 1,000 units, not even speaking about 100,000 or 1,000,000 units. That's one of the usual pitfalls, and that's where so many good projects disappear, basically.
Thank you. And in fact, I'd like to stick with you and expand that discussion on volumes that you were mentioning there, because if a project team starts on day one, now if it's a solution like a pipeline monitoring solution, you're going to know pretty much exactly how many end devices you're going to need when that project is fully implemented. But there are many IoT solutions, like a product, for example. If you decide to productize a sheep tracker, as we have out on the walls, out there on one of the walls, those volumes are fundamentally uncertain. So how does that filter through to problems or difficulties with specializing in end solution? Just that uncertainty of volumes.
Yeah, that's clearly a key concern. Well, take the example of the sheep tracker. Like, there are so many million sheep in the world, so of course you are going to do 10 million sheep trackers next year. But you also need to make sure that how are you going to take the first 1,000, and are you going to scale your operations properly to make sure that, well, you are already making money at that level and you didn't build a massive operation like cloud operations designed for 10 million units that is costing you 5 times what you get. So making sure that you're able to prepare for scale, but do it at the right time as well, and make sure either you know perfectly well, as you said, in advance, which everybody would love to have perfect forecast and knowing how many units you are going to get next quarter and the year after that, and not just a big promise with a lot of zeros. You'll have everything in between, and you have to manage also your customers' expectation, making sure it's backed by actual results, ambitious enough, reasonable enough as well, to make sure that you don't, as I said, you don't have everything falling apart because you have been either too cautious or overtly ambitious, thinking that you're going to capture 80% of the total addressable market, which doesn't always happen in IoT.
Thank you. And Olivier, what are your thoughts on this kind of agile approach to managing the volumes, as Nicolas outlined? I mean, can it be fully agile all the way from 0 to a 10 million device deployed estate, or are there decision points where you have to make a decision to do, thing A or thing B, which prejudices what you can do in the future?
First, yeah, you need to think from a technical standpoint on how you architect your program to be able to scale. Again, to go from 0, 100, 10,000, 1,000, 10,000, and so on. So there is a technical aspect. Now, one issue is a business case as well. A lot of IoT projects fail because the business case was wrong day one. That assuming millions of units at a very low price or very low revenue from the asset, that trigger wrong technical decision. I need something cheap to enable the business case. And in a lot of cases, what is cheap become very expensive because the cheap technology that you use cannot scale. So you have a mismatch. You design your business case for high volume, low cost. So you go cheap, but because you are cheap, you cannot scale. Because then very quickly you have a security issue, you have reliability issue, and so on and so on. And after 1,000, you collapse. So this is this overall equation that you need to think about. Yes, I need to scale. I need the right cost, but don't go to the trap because I'm thinking big and go very low cost, because it's where usually people fail.
Okay, Dan, your thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of businesses need to start somewhere, of course, because a lot of ideas need to start from scratch. And then it all starts, how many pieces am I going to sell? And if you have a sustained business, you can have quite stable market predictions. I'm going to sell this many in the first year, and this is my ramp-up speed. But with new ideas, which have not yet a proven market, you need to start somewhere without any predictions. And then it's all about, am I going to build something custom, or am I going to use an off-the-shelf product? And in many cases, neither of those options is a good solution, because building something custom is typically going to cost you a huge upfront development cost and a high certification cost. But using something off the shelf either gives you a lot of too much features, or you don't have a good availability option. So you need to have some options that gives you best of both worlds. And there modular options come to the rescue, where you can have something what we call custom off the shelf. And that's something that's really interesting, because then you can build something custom by simply modifying or adding some additions to an existing module without huge upfront costs, and you can gradually scale up without huge upfront costs. And that allows you to test out your business idea, to see and scale up within a few hundred, a few thousand products a year, and you can still, when scaling up goes well, and there's just a tipping point, and that depends on the product, a few thousand to maybe 50,000 products a year, where you can then decide, okay, now I will go and design something fully custom, where it becomes cheaper to go fully custom.
Okay, thank you very much. And what I'd like to at this point is pick up on something that you mentioned, Olivier. You mentioned around the kind of cost of ownership expectations and understanding changing over the duration of a project. I'd like to pick up on you, if you can explain a little more how that comes about. We've heard a bit of a solution on the hardware side, but there's more to the question than just the hardware, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it's a very wide topic, obviously, and again, if you don't have a business case well thought day one, you most likely are going to fail. That's the basic. Now, how to do this business case is go back a little bit to Dan was saying, you need to think about stage. First, I'm going to deploy a certain amount of unit, which is not so large, but just to prove the concept and so on. And here you need to have a business case which is solid. You should not lose too much money, or at least it should be properly planned to make sure that you have something that's sustained by itself. And then over time, you will evolve. As Dan was saying, you can start with off the shelf, you prove that you have a business model, it works, you make money and so on, and after you can go to the step 2, which is, I want even to go higher volume, so I need to reduce my cost, I will go to a custom solution, and so on and so on. So you need to think about the different phase, but don't go to the trap. Day one, I'm going to be I'm going big, I'm going to make extremely low cost and so on, because this is where, again, people fail, because there's a tendency to go to technologies that are too low cost, that cannot scale. And there is plenty of examples in terms of communication technology, in terms of chipset, in terms of memory, in terms of antenna, in terms of the list is endless. If you go too cheap day one, this is where most likely you are going to fail. So go step by step, do some things that can prove your first milestone that is going to work, and after move on with the cost reduction and so on as volume grows.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think Olivier made a very good point. When you design for scale, you don't design for scale today. There is this time aspect. It means that you are designing and thinking about how you're going to operate 3, 5, 7 years from now. And so, yeah, is my provider operating steadily at a loss for the last 3 years? Will there still be around to support me in 5 years? And if not, what's my backup plan? That's an important aspect. And in terms of technology choices as well, like, I don't know, I'm designing a project today. My prototype works very well in 2G because that's a great technology, but should I design everything on 2G right now? Maybe I should talk to Dan and Olivier before making that choice, and they could advise me about technologies that may be a bit more future-proof and may be able to support me, and starting to think what could be the next things happening down the road, future evolution, to make sure I don't basically put all my eggs in the wrong basket from day one, and then, as you say, just fail because I pick the wrong choices on day one, and then I'm fighting a losing battle, not on my business case or not on my use case, but on the wrong choices that I made at the beginning.
And Dan, any further thoughts on this kind of the goal on the uncertainty? Sorry, on the expectations of TCO changing over time.
Yeah. So picking a hardware solution is, of course, really important, but scalability on the hardware is one side, scalability on the software is at least as important, because hardware can evolve. Evolving software on an application level, that's one thing. On the protocol level is also really important. Picking the wrong protocol can cost you a lot, especially on cellular. It can cost you a lot because it can bring a lot of overhead. So it can, especially when scaling, if you choose the wrong protocol level, it can have a lot of overhead, so bring a lot of costs. So even when you're making a proof of concept, choose a protocol and software stack that can scale to a lot bigger project than you foresee with that protocol, so that you design already for scalability on a software level, because that's more easy than designing for scalability on a hardware level.
Thank you. At this point, are there any questions out there? Anybody got any burning questions that they want to ask these folks about scaling projects? All right. In that case, I'll add in another of my own then. So a couple of times the concept of different technologies have come up. And we've not really considered the full scope of technology, connectivity technologies, because obviously there's, LoRaWAN. I mean, this is very much a LoRaWAN conference in its roots, but increasingly we've been talking about cellular. There's also folks like Sigfox and MIoT and Wi-Fi solutions and Bluetooth solutions. So what are your thoughts on the complexities of these different connectivity technologies and the implications they have for the challenges of scaling a solution? I'll start with you, Dan, and then I'll ask...
Yeah, so when choosing a connectivity protocol, you have a lot of options, and it seems as every day a new option appears. And I think that when somebody comes to me and asks what's the best connectivity protocol, you cannot give that answer. It depends on the use case. Cellular is good, LoRaWAN is good, Zigbee is good, Bluetooth is good. It all depends on the use case. That's also when we have our Walter module, for example, we combine Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cellular, GNSS, and you can combine these radio technologies for different use cases. So it's important that you look at the business case, you look at your constraints, and you pick a technology that works for you and that you feel comfortable with. Because it's not only what you know that's going to work, but it's also what you feel comfortable with your development team, and something that you know how to develop with.
Thank you. And Nicolas, your thoughts on this same question about these alternative technologies and implications they have for the challenges of scaling.
Yeah, maybe it's wishful thinking, but I think we are finally past this battle of my technology or my protocol is better than yours. Like 10 years ago, you'd come to that conference and it was LoRaWAN is the best, nothing competes. You'd go to the Sigfox conference and it was the opposite. And I think we are past that. And at least the way we operate is making sure that the customer make the right choices. You mentioned TCO earlier on, and I think that's an important part, is what do you want to put at the edge level? Do you need a concentrator, a gateway, a router, whatever the name? If you're using Wi-Fi, LoRaWAN, Bluetooth, MIoT, or whatever mesh technology, depends actually on the use case, the cost that you can afford on the edge level, the cost of the operations. Like, do you want to set up a gateway, to manage a router, to have installation teams, IT teams? There's a lot of factors. And as Dan said, you cannot just say, oh, this is the technology, nothing else makes sense. It really depends on what you are trying to achieve, the needs of the project, what you want to invest as well, what you can afford in terms of future costs when we speak about scaling. Once you have thousands of routers deployed, who's going to do the managed part of the managed services, making sure that the firmware is up to date. If you do Edge AI, who's going to make sure that we've got the right up-to-date model on each and individual node. And there's a lot of factors like that. So long story short, there is no easy answer to say, pick technology A and forget technology B. I think, and that's why you need the right partners and the right people to help you make the right decision and make the right arbitrage. Maybe nothing is going to be perfect. The thing that is the closer to what you need and what you can afford.
Thank you. Finally, Olivier, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I will support what Nicolas was saying. I think the market is now pretty mature. This type of conference are completely different today than 10 years ago, where people was promising the mood, and there have been a lot of dead body, companies that get bankrupt and disappear, and they were promising millions of units for very low cost. That didn't happen, and they collapse. So now I think there are few technologies that are well known from everyone. For you, I will give an advice for developers is come to this type of conference, meet people, meet this ecosystem. You can learn a lot. And also to try to go into a technology that you are comfortable with, but that has an ecosystem around. And the best is to go with a technology that is standardized, with an open standard, where you have multiple players around the technology, because that gives you more options within this ecosystem, and it proves that the technology is backed by multiple peoples.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're running short on time. We've just got a couple of minutes left. But what I'd like to do is ask each one of you what you and your companies specifically do to try and help people through this process, from having an idea to a full successful rollout. Nicolas.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And Olivier mentioned the importance of ecosystem. I think it's key. On our side, being a provider of connectivity solutions, to be successful ourselves, our shared interest is for the customer to survive and to be successful in the long run, scaling up and for a long time. So it's important to have the right partners around, be it consulting, design houses, manufacturing services, software solutions that can help the customer either build the perfect solution or find and source the right components, enablement tools, ready-to-use devices. If there is something existing that matches their needs, no need to reinvent the wheel. So that's really key to have that ecosystem approach to make sure we and everyone can help the customers build or buy the right thing, move fast, and grow after that.
Thank you. Olivier.
Yeah, no, for us, again, at Sequans, we are a chipset manufacturer, so we are at the bottom of the value chain. We are very focused on what we do. We do very little things, LTM, Cat1B, Red Cap, and that's it. So we are the expert on what we do, and we aim to make it as simple as possible, working with an ecosystem. That, again, to the point of Nicolas, is that we are not going to pretend that we'll teach you everything about IoT. However, on what we do, we try to be the best and to provide the best technology on the box that we provide, working again with an ecosystem around us, whether they are connectivity provider, design house, solution provider, and so on, to enable the technology.
Okay. We are the creators of the Walter module, a really small module that combines Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, low energy, LTE Cat M1, narrowband IoT, and GNSS, all in one really small module with RF circuitry on board, really low power with 9.5 microamps in deep sleep, all with open source software libraries in Arduino, ESP IDF, MicroPython, and the Zephyr operating system. And this module really helps you to build your proof of concept, but also scale up to a few hundred to few thousand products a year. So it's an ideal product to build from idea up to a few thousand products in the field.
Okay, thank you very much to the panel. Do you have any hardware? No hardware? Okay. Grab that one, pretend it's yours. Thank you, everybody, for listening into the panel. I thought it was really informative. It really is a problem which has been around for a long time. I expect it to be there for quite a while, although we are making inroads to solving it, just scaling from the idea to full deployment. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to the panel.